They laughed when I showed up at the Golden Gates, calling me a fraud. The security guards shoved me away like I was nothing. But what they didn't know was that I held a piece of paper that would change everything. A secret that would bring their entire world crashing down. Before we dive into this incredible true story of justice and revenge, hit that like button if you believe the truth always comes to light, and subscribe for more unbelievable real-life stories that will shock you. My name is Helena Morrison, and 3 days ago, I was just a simple bakery owner in the quiet town of Millbrook. Today, I'm sitting in a mansion worth $40 million, holding the keys to a $2.3 billion empire. But the journey from there to here nearly broke me in ways I never thought possible. It all started 4 years ago, when a man walked into my little bakery on Main Street. He was tall, distinguished, with silver hair and tired eyes that seemed to carry the weight of the world. He ordered a simple coffee and blueberry muffin, but something about the way he sat in that corner booth, just staring out the window, made me think he needed more than breakfast. He needed peace. His name was Vincent Ashford. Yes, that Vincent Ashford, the tech billionaire whose face was plastered on magazine covers and business journals. But in my bakery, he wasn't a mogul or a celebrity. He was just a man who seemed lost, and for some reason, he kept coming back. Every Tuesday morning for 3 months, same order, same booth, same haunted expression. We started talking, small conversations at first, about the weather, the town, my recipes. But gradually, Vincent began opening up about his life. He told me about the crushing pressure of running a global empire, about children who saw him only as a source of money, about a world where everyone wanted something from him. In my little bakery, surrounded by the smell of fresh bread and the gentle chatter of locals, he found something he'd forgotten existed: genuine human connection. I fell in love with Vincent Ashford, not because of his money. I had no idea how wealthy he truly was at first, but because he made me laugh. He helped me close the bakery every Tuesday evening, rolling up his expensive sleeves to wash dishes and sweep floors. He told me stories about his early days as a struggling programmer, and I shared my dreams of maybe opening a second location someday. After 8 months of these Tuesday visits, Vincent asked me to marry him, not with fanfare or cameras, or a ring worth more than my entire bakery. He asked me on a quiet evening, as we watched the sunset from my small apartment above the shop. He said he'd found something with me that all his billions couldn't buy: authenticity, peace, and real love. We were married in a simple courthouse ceremony, with just Judge Patterson as our witness. Vincent insisted we keep it secret, not because he was ashamed of me, but because he wanted to protect me. He'd seen what his world did to people: the scheming, the backstabbing, the way everyone became a target. He needed time to figure out how to integrate me into his life without destroying the peace we'd built together. For 3 beautiful years, I was Mrs. Vincent Ashford, even though the world never knew it. He would visit me every week, sometimes more. We talked about everything and nothing. He taught me about business and technology, while I taught him about contentment and simple joys. We planned a future where he would gradually step back from his empire and we could travel together, maybe open bakeries in small towns across the country. Then came the phone call that shattered everything. I was preparing Tuesday's special batch of Vincent's favorite cinnamon rolls when my neighbor, Mrs. Chen, knocked frantically on my door. She'd seen the breaking news. Vincent Ashford, tech mogul and billionaire, had suffered a massive heart attack during a board meeting. He was dead at 58. The world mourning my husband, while I couldn't even publicly grieve, was the cruelest irony I'd ever experienced. I watched the news coverage from my small living room, seeing his children, Priscilla and Donovan, give interviews about their beloved father while planning his elaborate funeral. They spoke about how he was a devoted family man who lived only for them and his company. If they only knew the truth. I made the hardest decision of my life. I used every penny of my savings, nearly $12,000, to travel to the city for Vincent's funeral. I had to say goodbye to my husband, even if it meant revealing our secret to a world that would never understand. The Ashford mansion was everything I'd imagined and more. Golden gates, manicured gardens spanning acres, and a house that looked more like a palace than a home. Cars worth more than my bakery lined the circular driveway as guests in designer clothes mingled on the grounds. I felt completely out of place in my simple black dress and borrowed heels, but I had every right to be there. I was Vincent's wife. The security guards took one look at me and started laughing. "Ma'am, this is a private event for family and important guests only," the larger one said, with barely concealed amusement. "I think you might have the wrong address." When I explained that I was Vincent's wife, their laughter turned cruel. "Lady, Mr. Ashford's family is inside, and they don't include some random woman from nowhere. You need to leave before we call the police." That's when Priscilla Ashford herself appeared, drawn by the commotion. She was everything I expected: tall, elegant, dripping with diamonds and designer clothing. Her brother Donovan followed, equally polished and cold. When the security guard explained my delusions, their reactions were swift and brutal. "You pathetic woman," Priscilla sneered, looking me up and down with disgust. "My father was a man of impeccable taste and breeding. The idea that he would associate with someone like you is absolutely ridiculous. What are you hoping to gain from this sick fantasy? Money? Attention?" Donovan was even worse. "Security, please escort this disturbed woman off our property immediately. And if she returns, call the police. We won't have mentally ill people disrupting our father's memorial." I tried to show them my marriage certificate, but they wouldn't even look at it. "Anyone can forge documents these days," Priscilla said dismissively. "Get her out of here before she makes an even bigger fool of herself." The humiliation of being physically escorted away, while dozens of guests watched and whispered, was worse than any pain I'd ever experienced. But as those golden gates closed behind me, leaving me standing on the public sidewalk in my borrowed heels, something inside me hardened. Vincent had warned me about his family's cruelty, but experiencing it firsthand was devastating. However, I had something they didn't know about: the truth. The next morning, I walked into the offices of Sterling Wade, Vincent's longtime attorney. The receptionist tried to dismiss me just like everyone else, but when I mentioned Vincent's secret marriage, Sterling himself came out to meet me. His face went completely white when I handed him my marriage certificate. "This is impossible," he whispered, examining the document with shaking hands. "Vincent never mentioned—" "This is legitimate. This is real. Oh my God, this changes everything." Sterling explained that Vincent had indeed updated his will after our marriage, leaving me as the primary beneficiary of his entire empire. 80% of his assets, his businesses, his properties, everything except small trust funds for his children. Vincent had planned to reveal our marriage publicly after one more year, wanting to ensure I was ready for the inevitable media circus. "Mrs. Ashford," Sterling said, and hearing someone finally use my real name brought tears to my eyes. "You are now one of the wealthiest women in America, but more importantly, you have controlling interest in all of Vincent's companies and properties, including the mansion where his children currently live." The emergency family meeting was scheduled for the following day. When I walked into Sterling's conference room, flanked by the team of lawyers Vincent had arranged for my protection, Priscilla and Donovan's faces went through a spectacular range of emotions: confusion, recognition, disbelief, and finally, pure terror. "What is she doing here?" Priscilla demanded. "Sterling, I thought we agreed no disturbed fans would be allowed in family meetings." Sterling's voice was steady and professional as he presented the marriage certificate and will. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you to meet Helena Morrison Ashford, Vincent's legal wife of 3 years and the primary beneficiary of his estate." The silence that followed was deafening. Donovan's face turned an alarming shade of purple, while Priscilla gripped her chair so hard her knuckles went white. Their lawyer frantically examined the documents, looking for any flaw, any loophole, any reason to declare them invalid. But there was none. "This is impossible," Priscilla finally whispered. "Our father wouldn't, he couldn't. We're his children. We're his legacy." "And you still are," I said quietly, speaking for the first time since entering the room. "But I was his wife, and according to his will, which he updated after careful consideration, he wanted me to inherit the majority of his estate." What happened next was pure karma in its most poetic form. Priscilla and Donovan, who had humiliated me and thrown me out like garbage, suddenly realized that I now controlled their trust funds, their credit cards, their allowances, and even the mansion they lived in. The woman they had dismissed as a pathetic nobody was now their landlord and, effectively, their boss. But here's where my story takes an unexpected twist that even I didn't see coming. As Sterling continued reading Vincent's will, he came to a section that made everyone in the room gasp. Vincent had included a detailed letter explaining not just his love for me, but a shocking revelation about his relationship with his children. It turned out that Priscilla and Donovan weren't his biological children at all. Vincent's first wife, their mother Caroline, had had an affair during their marriage. DNA tests Vincent had secretly conducted years earlier proved that both children were fathered by his former business partner, Jonathan Blackwell, the same man who had tried to destroy Vincent's company in a hostile takeover attempt decades ago. Vincent had kept this secret to protect the children, raising them as his own, despite knowing the truth. The letter explained that Vincent's decision to leave them smaller inheritances wasn't out of spite, but because he felt they had never truly loved him as a father, only as a source of wealth. His marriage to me had shown him what genuine love felt like, and he wanted to ensure his fortune went to someone who had loved him for who he truly was. Priscilla and Donovan sat in stunned silence as this revelation sank in. Not only had they lost most of their inheritance to a woman they'd dismissed as beneath them, but they'd discovered that their entire identity was built on a lie. However, unlike them, I chose mercy over revenge. Over the following weeks, I could have made their lives miserable. I could have evicted them from the mansion, cut off their funds entirely, and watched them struggle as they had made me struggle. But Vincent's love had changed me, and I realized that perpetuating cruelty would dishonor his memory. Instead, I offered them a chance at redemption. I gave them each a modest but comfortable inheritance, enough to live well, but not enough to live without purpose. More importantly, I offered them positions in Vincent's companies where they could learn the value of real work and earn additional income based on their actual contributions. The transformation was remarkable. Stripped of their unlimited access to wealth and forced to confront the truth about their origins, both Priscilla and Donovan began to change. They started working genuine jobs for the first time in their lives. They began to understand the value of money when it had to be earned rather than simply expected. Slowly, tentatively, we began to build a relationship. Not as adversaries, but as people who had all loved Vincent in different ways. They shared stories about their childhood with him, while I shared stories about our quiet Tuesday mornings and evening conversations. We discovered that despite everything, Vincent had talked about them often during our marriage, always hoping they would find their own paths to happiness and purpose. I moved into the mansion, but converted most of it into a community center and educational facility, keeping only a modest wing for my personal use. The Ashford Foundation was established to provide business training and microloans to small-town entrepreneurs, helping people like I had been build their dreams without leaving their communities. But perhaps the most meaningful moment came 6 months later, when I found Vincent's final letter to me, hidden in a safety deposit box I hadn't known existed. In it, he explained that he had always planned for this moment, not his death, but the eventual revelation of our marriage and my inheritance. He had known his children would react badly at first, but he believed that with patience and love, we could all become a real family. He was right. Today, almost a year later, Priscilla manages the Foundation's educational programs, while Donovan has discovered a talent for sustainable technology development. They still call me Helena rather than any family title, but there's respect in their voices now, and even affection. I still bake on Tuesday mornings, though now it's in the mansion's enormous kitchen, and I share Vincent's favorite cinnamon rolls with his children. We talk about him often, not as the distant billionaire the world knew, but as the man who loved quietly and deeply, who found joy in simple moments, and who believed that love and kindness could transform even the hardest hearts. The golden gates that once shut me out now open for the dozens of students and entrepreneurs who visit the mansion daily. The security guards who once laughed at me now treat everyone with respect and dignity. And sometimes, when I sit in Vincent's favorite chair overlooking the gardens, I can almost hear his voice reminding me that the greatest wealth isn't measured in dollars, but in the lives we touch and the love we share. Outro call to action. Helena's story proves that money and power mean nothing without character and respect. If this story moved you, smash that like button and share it with someone who needs to remember that karma is real. Subscribe for more incredible true stories where justice always wins in the end. What would you have done in Helena's situation? Let me know in the comments below.